I like this class. But I don't know if I'm that anything. So
Wow.
It should be sending out the new invites to Scott and Joanna.
Okay. Okay. Let's see.
I wonder if everybody else showed up at the at the other building.
Oh, good question. Yeah, I hope not. I sent that email this morning.
Yeah.
So hopefully
I waited until right before to check.
going back and move it again. Yeah. I think that seems like Kevin was going to try, but he may have started over there. Okay, so we are recording right now. I'm wondering if I'm going to check my email and see if I'm wondering if I should send the other folks an email since I messed up and turned off the Skype, the Google Hangouts. They can join us.
So they might still be in the other one.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything. Okay.
Well, right now you're signed in and your broadcasting is you, so.
I'm not broadcasting as me. Okay, okay. And so, we don't know what it looks like to them over there, wherever they are. So, if they're in the old one.
It'd probably just be the two of them talking to each other.
Okay, wondering where everybody is. Okay. Okay.
I think I might have it still pulled up on the old one.
Okay, that maybe they're there for you. That'd be great. Sounds like he is talking to somebody. I wonder if I should be visible. Maybe that's part of it. Let's see. There. It's looking.
Is he trying to show them how to get to us?
This is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, so, right, I think that the people who look at this recording are going to end up with some dead air on the front end.
Yeah.
So I don't know there is any way around that, but I'll do an explanation when we
Okay.
put up the thing.
Okay.
But right now, I logged us out of one on accident as we learn these things, and Mike initiated another one.
Okay.
So they're in the old one, probably.
Okay.
And he's helping them get to the new one. I'll go check on it. I guess I thought he was talking to them.
She was there. Joanne was there briefly, and I
Did you catch her?
I
Okay.
told her to check her email to see if she could see the updated invite.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's as long as she knows that we haven't abandoned
No.
her. And I think Scott's going to try to get into that he may not have gotten the initial invite, so we're still working out the kinks. Okay, so in any case, we'll have a nice bit of dead air where I rearrange and and James has snacks and so we're all set. In any case, okay. Thank you so much, Mike, for setting this up and for doing it after hours too, so we can use your lovely space. I think that I was trying to get people like Joe, I know who work full time, and then I think Scott, who had that interest as well. And then I think there's also a daytime slot that we can shoot for, so maybe the next one we could do one of those. But we were doing that 5:30 option for folks. But whatever, the goal here is really the recording. So I think it's more pleasant to go over these things with people in the room rather than me just talking with the screen. So this is cool. I think this is going to be an interesting thing to work out. And so since Mike and I just discovered that we can live stream for 8 hours, he says he'll go ahead and spend the night here. You don't need to see your kids. You've already put in a full day, so James, we're all in a lock-in. So nobody leaves. But I wanted to get you guys in here to talk about a couple of things that are coming up. The book review, which you've already selected your title, and also the response paper one. And I wanted to, in both cases, talk a bit more about our little thin but dense textbook and some of the concepts that are coming forward, because part of doing this is this work is thinking of the humanities in different ways, I think, than maybe we're used to, which opens up a lot of opportunities and also closes a lot of opportunities. That's a little bit warm in here. So I'm going to attempt to share a screen here. Let's go right here. Oh wait, I want to share the entire screen so that you can see everything I'm doing. That means now we are doing that. Okay, so here's the class. So as I said, I wanted to talk about the book reviews. I had asked you guys to begin having a conversation about the book review options, with the idea that we would crowdsource the titles together.
Okay.
And I see some of that has been happening. I'm really grateful for that. Basically, I
I
wanted.
need to read those. I hadn't looked at those.
There's not there's not a lot of conversation happening here, but what I've been doing is pushing some additional options. I just created an Amazon list, and I want to talk about some of these because they don't have the title Digital Humanities in them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still really important to the digital humanities. Many of these are books that are cited in Jones.
Okay.
The goal for your book review, is let's go ahead and where did I put the book review? Let's see. Assignment, your book review. So the book review is a 4-page review of a scholarly book in the digital humanities. I have expanded that to include some theoretical works and even some creative works that get cited pretty regularly in the digital humanities, or that you can argue have deep and important connections to the digital humanities.
Okay.
And certainly the ones like the work of Gibson comes up so often that that his work. You'd mentioned, Mike, an interest in some of his earlier stuff, like Neuromancer. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one that you think that you'd like to review?
Yeah. I'm just not sure exactly how to go about that. I mean, it's the one he refers to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he refers to a lot of Gibson, but that's the one where the term cyberspace was, I guess, coined.
Yeah, and then he brings in Spook. Was it Spook City?
Spook Country.
Spook Country.
Which is part 2 of the latest trilogy. And I think Kevin is reading Pattern Recognition, which is the first part of that trilogy.
Okay, so your reviews would speak to one another, I think, in some neat ways. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're doing a book review of a book that has in its title Digital Humanities, doing a scholarly review is pretty straightforward. So I'll start with the straightforward part, and then I will talk about why I'm encouraging you guys to go the not straightforward route if you'd like.
Can you check to see if Joanne ever made it in?
I will.
Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
There's probably another tab open at the bottom under the Google Chrome.
So.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Woo!
She didn't make it in there.
She didn't. Okay.
I don't know.
Did you talk to her?
I did, but she was still in the old room, for lack of a better term, the other link, and she got the updated invite. You know what? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
It's okay.
What shall we do?
See if we can see the little person icon at the very top. You can kill this window. This cancel.
Cancel.
The little person icon right there. Yeah. Okay. And now let's try inviting her this way from within. I think it's Joanne.
Joanne.
Is it Kendo? Is that right?
With that O or without? It's just not.
I think it's Kendo.
Okay, I think it is. That's her right there. This is it. That's it.
Okay.
Good plan. And then we'll see what happens. Okay, so looking forward to seeing Joanne. Sorry we left you in an empty room, Joanne. But yeah, we don't know if she's going to beep in or how, but we'll look for her. All right. So we were talking about book reviews, and the book reviews, just to share the screen again and look at the assignment there. Oh, I want to do the entire screen again, and we'll do that weird multi-dimension thing. And then this. I have created in Amazon just a list of a ton of books. many of which don't have digital humanities in the title, but they're books that get referenced a lot in the digital humanities. Some of it is older scholarship, like the medium is, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And some of his earlier work, some of his creative works, the names that I'm forgetting right now, but a lot of work on the machine. Roland Barthes, we've got a lot of by Benjamin. Benjamin's huge in digital humanities, and again, this is not work that says the words digital humanities, but it is work that gets borrowed from in major ways, especially when we're talking about theoretical ways to understand the role of the digital in the humanities. And I think that one of the things that I find both frustrating and fascinating about the digital humanities is that tension that seems to want to, that there seems to be a desire, maybe more by people who would not identify as digital humanists, but see them, but know the need to talk about it, that there seems to be a desire to talk about the digital as though it's removed from the human, or to try to talk about the humanities as though the digital is not a totally immersive concept within that. And so anything that really helps us look at and probably bring back in time the fact that humans and tools and technologies have always intersected and always influenced one another. So it's just that it's really made it really so Benjamin is an important one. This is one that comes up a lot, the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
Things that look at the evolution of technology, from gramophone, film, typewriter. I think that, and then this one is a huge one, the Arcades Project by Benjamin, that comes up. There's a piece in composition studies that is an absolutely delightful read that might be worth reading for this class that I didn't put on the list, called English Composition is a Happening by Jeffrey Sirk. And it takes this Arcades project and really forces us to rethink composition in some interesting ways. It's this artistic movement draws a lot from this art as a happening, where, well, I don't want to get into it, but it's just a very 60s era kind of thing, where it's like it's all about the moment. Things that make us rethink space. There's some more Benjamin, and this piece up here, Uncreative Writing, Managing Language in the Digital Age. There's a course that gets talked about a lot, a creative writing course called Uncreative Writing. I can't remember where it's taught, but it's the goal is specifically to make new things out of already existing texts, with the idea that that is in itself a creative act, and that there is no original text. And I've drawn from that argument a lot in the remix stuff, that we can certainly, going back at least to Emerson, who says that all minds, quote, it all comes from one another. So a lot of stuff on remaking fiction through technology, some of it older, some of it newer, the history of computers and its role, and a lot of stuff about how do we produce history in this, and the role of the archives, because we have a lot of archivists that archives plays a major role in our work, and not just archives like digitizing things that are paper, but rethinking entire dimensions of how we interact with the material realities of our worlds. Anyway, there are tons of books on this, and I'll keep adding things, but there's a lot of stuff on space, on remaking, on rethinking our interactions with place and space, and a lot of work in geo-mapping, those kinds of things are really important to the digital humanities. And then I hoped, this is the book that I mentioned that in the previous class we were talking about and we will get to this more when we get to the publication side of things. Planned obsolescence, Catherine Fitzpatrick. She's making a pretty profound argument about, an important one, about the role of peer review in this current iteration. That she, let's see. Okay, I can't find the description of it. Here we go.
Read more,
yeah. It's, okay. Academic institutions are facing a crisis in scholarly publishing at multiple levels. Presses are stressed as never before. Library budgets are squeezed. Faculty are having difficulty publishing their work. And promotion and tenure committees are facing a range of new ways of working without a clear sense of how to understand and evaluate them. Planned obsolescence is both a provocation to think more broadly about the academy's future and an argument for reconceiving that future in more communally oriented ways. Facing these issues head-on, Catherine Fitzpatrick focuses on the technological changes, especially greater utilization of internet publication technologies, including digital archives, social networking tools, and multimedia necessary to allow academic publishing to thrive in the future. But she goes further, insisting that the key issues that must be addressed are social and institutional in origin. So she said this was a project that sprang from her original research, but also her own hands-on experiences in these new modes of scholarly communication, using specifically Media Commons, which is itself a digital humanities project, and it's a scholarly network that she helped co-found. She looks at how these aspects of scholarly work, as well as the issues surrounding the preservation of digital scholarship and the place of publishing within the structure of the contemporary university. So basically, it is itself an argument for us rethinking the very slow movement and all of the gatekeeping mechanisms that we use in order to keep scholarly works. It moves too slow for scholarly works, and we can still get the rigor, according to her arguments and others that have got along with her. We can still get that scholarly rigor in through some really thoughtful uses of essentially social media that have been reconfigured for this.
I think Joanne was
She's
able
here?
to join us. She said she emailed saying she could see us.
Okay, well, I'm going to get back in there then and stop the screen share and see.
Hey, Joanne, if you're there, can you turn your camera on?
Joanne, are you there? Can you hear us? Well, okay. Well, we'll keep talking and hopefully she'll show up. I mean, we are doing this enhanced thing. I don't know what that means.
It's magic.
It's the magic. It's a magic wand. Okay, so our goal with the book review then is it's not just to review things that are obviously digital humanities, but to really take on some of the questions of what is the digital humanities, and also what does digital humanities look like. And so, Mike, if you're looking at an earlier work, that helped us coin cyberspace, it could, I mean, it depends on what direction you want to go with it. It could be an opportunity to really look at that kind of tension between this web 2.0 universe versus the 1.0 thing, and what might have been some of those early projects that we would call digital humanities. Or you might be able to help us draw a deeper kind of understanding of how, maybe if you wanted to argue for that, maybe how some of the metaphors for this early cyberspace might still be useful in these current, in definitions that you would be drawn to in the digital humanities. So your job is to, if the book is clearly a digital humanities piece, your job is to look at, and I'm going to have to broadcast again the screen. Hopefully, Joanne can still see us. Your job is in part to to bring it within the conversation of the digital humanities. It probably already is if it's a digital humanities book, so you'll be able to make those connections. Let's see. In the book review, I'll be looking for, did the reviewer adequately address the author's overall project, argument, and goals? So if the argument, project, and goals are specifically digital humanities, and that's the stated goal of it, then did they look at, did you as a reviewer consider the impact that the book has had on the discipline in terms of what you have seen, or maybe what the author of the piece that you're reviewing has done? But if the job of the original piece is not to comment on the digital humanities, but you can make an argument that this has been taken up in the digital humanities, or rather that it should be taken up in the digital humanities, then those would be the places that you draw those connections. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah.
So the methods/evidence. So methods would be, if it is a study that is maybe an empirical study of some phenomenon, then you would look at how they take up their research question and answer those kinds of things. More than if it is more of a theoretical treatise or some kind of a project that is not specifically an empirical study, which the vast majority of them will be, then you want to look at it in terms of an argument. You know, what kinds of evidence do they shore up to make these arguments, and how convincing is that? But if you're instead looking at a creative work that has had this kind of an impact, then you would be drawing on the kinds of dense materials and arguments and maybe characters or metaphors that they're able to unfurl, and drawing those connections into the digital humanities arguments. And in terms of the style and the organizational choices and so forth, you would be commenting more on those stylistic choices, not necessarily as you would a reviewer of literature, but rather thinking in terms of an audience interested in concepts of the digital humanities. What might they expect rolling into this as a from this 21st century perspective, if we're dealing with this older book from the early 80s. What might they need to know? Why is it a dense book? Is it difficult to work through, or is it, you know, lazy afternoon breeze? So basically your job is to make it relevant to the digital humanities conversation if it's not already clearly that, or to make it clear that you understand the conversation in which it's a part, even if it is clearly part of the digital humanities conversation. Yeah. We also need to look carefully at the dates. One of the reasons why I didn't necessarily want to throw in, I'm gonna stop the sharing again. One of the reasons why I didn't want to throw in my titles automatically was because I wanted us to crowdsource those together, and the book titles that I had pulled together just a couple of years ago are already out of date. So but you guys can address that in your work. So if you've got a book that came out in 2008, then we're on one side of what Jones and others are really seeing is the upsurge in digital humanities. So, you know, what can we say about that placement? But there's plenty going on at the time, and this is the aversion that he's talking about, right? I'm looking back at, oh gosh, page.
Yeah, in terms of Gibson, I would think his more recent stuff would be more applicable. If you go all the way back to Neuromancer, I mean, it's not ancient history, but it's very, you know.
Well, you could certainly make arguments for, I mean, we're talking about the new humanities that is so recent versus a longer history of the digital humanities, which I think that you could make arguments still have something real. Yeah. I mean, if we want to argue that Gibson's earlier work is still relevant and important for digital humanities today, I think that we can do that. We just feel it's just a little bit more work. But if you're doing some of his more recent work, then you also have the challenge of how how much of that is obvious?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and also how much of that has already been done by people like Jones.
Well, and also Neuromancers is probably his most famous and award-winning. So if you haven't read any Gibson, you should start with that anyway. So.
I started with reading his collection of short stories called Burning Chrome.
Okay.
Which the first story, Johnny Mnemonic,
Yeah.
which is a really bad Keanu Reeves
Yeah.
movie. But that kind of sets up actually the world in which Neuromancer takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this piece in there where the main character, who's basically trafficking because that's his job. He's just a vessel, right?
Yeah.
And so it really started getting me thinking about how, we have these hoards of information, digital archives, but without like digital humanities adding context and interpretation, what does it matter to have all that data there? And so it kind of like, to me, that character's situation was kind of a metaphor of how we have these giant mounds of data, and big data. People are talking about big data left and right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if you can't turn around and actually make something out of that, whether that be an action plan or interpretation of what those little components mean.
Yeah.
So you think that you could make? I love this. So you think that you could make an argument through that particular collection, specifically Johnny Mnemonic, as a way to understand the urgency of movement between the humanities computing era and the heavy digitization that occurred kind of in its wake, and the more new humanities movement where we're trying to interpret and build things that would then, that have some kind of a visualization and applicability, educational value, scholarly value in terms of understanding things, because otherwise we just have mounds of data we don't know what to do with.
Yeah, and that's essentially kind of what I was going for, but I don't know if I can. That's a short story that's like maybe 20 pages at most.
I think you can make that argument, and I think you should. Yeah, it's a great. I think that's a very. And so, yeah, and if you, I would see what kinds of things you can draw from the rest of the collection. And it could be that really there's not as much to pull from in the rest of the collection, but it's still, if you could make the argument that we need to just take up that story, or do you think you could make the argument that we probably should take up the collection and read it more carefully as DH people?
Okay.
I like it. Anything that helps us think differently, or helps us think in the ways that digital humanities allows us to, or enables us to, or forces us to, I think is useful. Because again, it's so hard to understand when we can't even define it.
Well, and part of it too, like right after I said what I said about Neuromancer, I'm thinking more about it. In reality, with Neuromancer, and also this applies to like the other texts that you're talking about, that you're like, well, what's the time frame? When were they written, and how outdated are they? I don't think we should think of it in terms of being outdated, because one way to approach these books is to say, like, especially with something like Neuromancer, and he talks about it in our text, is how similar is this to where we are now, or how different is it from where we are now, in terms of what people thought cyberspace was, or what he was projecting it would be compared to what it is now. Yeah. And that's why I said maybe his more recent work would be more relevant. But by the same token, you could, anything if we're in the humanities, we're looking at stuff from the past. We're always looking at stuff from the past. So we shouldn't say, well, this is outdated or this isn't relevant, because Shakespeare is still relevant.
Yeah.
It's
that hack.
Yeah,
Joe just sent me a note, or through Google Hangouts. I see it on my phone, but I can't actually open it. Can you see something, or how would I see Google Hangouts? Because we're in it, right?
We're in Hangouts, and I think what happened is that, there's a viewer.
There's a viewer.
Hey,
that's
Joanna,
her.
if you're hearing us, and you're not in Hangouts, you might be watching the live stream on YouTube.
Oh, and that may be how she's a viewer, but she's not interacting. So what does she need to do to get in? Does she need to? She's already accepted the invitation. Should I invite her again?
No.
She's gotten in once though. I'm not sure if the previous invite got.
Does she have a camera? Maybe
She does. Yeah, because when I went in my office and the old link was still live,
you were talking.
I was
okay,
like,
you were
oh,
there.
there's somebody there, and that was
Okay.
Joanne.
It's there.
Hmm. So she sent a note though through Google Hangouts. How do I see the note?
Oh, she did?
Yeah, that's what it says on my phone, but it just says I.
Huh. I would think. I would think it would pop up in the chat, but
There she goes. Wait a minute, I just opened up Google Hangout. It says, oh wait, is she here? She says 2 minutes, ongoing call, so I can reply to her?
I don't know,
there she
maybe.
goes. Hmm.
Missed video call.
Oh. I don't know, Joanne. I'm so sorry, we're trying to figure this out. I don't know what to do to get you in here. So she's already got that invitation, I assume.
Oh, wait a minute, now it says 0 viewers.
Okay, so she got off.
Yeah, so she's in and out. Like, I don't know. I think she's trying to.
Okay.
Maybe she's trying to figure out how to. Do we have to be in? We're broadcasting into Google Hangout, but we're not in Google Hangout?
Well, we're like a call in Google Hangouts is what Mike was explaining.
Yeah, we're in fact, you know what? Let me go. I had it up on.
Hey, something's happening
Wait a
down
second.
here.
There's
No, yay, answer.
Answer it.
Hello?
She's coming.
Well, I think she started her.
Oh.
Just, yeah, take.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
You know, end the other call.
and the other call.
Yeah.